I'm a historian of religion in America, and I teach here at Berea in the history department. I was researching hillbilly music, music among Southern textile workers in the 1920s, and I was working in the Folklife archives at UNC Chapel Hill, and I just popped on a recording because the label said Primitive Baptist, and that sounded intriguing to me, but I did not know what that meant or who those people were. And the music just it just struck me dead. So just out of curiosity, I had no sense that this was any kind of a research project. I just became fascinated in their story. I was just captured by this mass of voices. And so what happens is, and this is really old style ways of singing, it's just everybody is essentially singing lead. There are no conventional harmonies. A lot of these hymns unfurl in minor keys. People are singing loudly and slowly. It sounded, to me, this is my initial impression. It sounded like people calling up spirits. It sounded funereal. It sounded luminous. It was gorgeous. But it was also strange. It sounded to me a little bit like the sort of twisting cantorial lines I'd heard sung in Shul growing up. You just start making associations. It sounded like Qawwali music, but like slowed down. I was just taken by it. It was like, what? It was just a wow kind of moment. That's what happened. I just had an intuition that the sound would tell me something about who these people were, so that if I listened really closely to the music, I could really understand them. We can turn to articles of faith that are listed at the beginning of every church record book, but that's a sort of rote understanding of who people are religiously. Their emotional lives, you need to be very careful though, because they're writing in genres. They're aware of them and they're not aware of them at the same time. I mean, the sort of evangelical conversion narrative is a key, so all that I just need to be really careful. I'm not mistaking stereotypical conventions for like real humanity. You don't spend that much time with the subject unless there's something that is pulling you. These people are located, though, largely in the South and Appalachia, and that was consistent with some of the work that I'd done on hillbilly music. It was different and strange. I'd listen to these old recordings, old blues recordings, early country music, and this is when I was a teenager in college, and I loved that music. I absolutely loved it. I also thought it sounded like gothic and mysterious. And I projected all these kinds of emotions onto it. This is really kind of different than where I grew up, in Los Angeles, in the suburbs, in a Jewish family. In the terms of music, it speaks to me. Yes, there's a gulf between me and these folks who are making these sounds, but there's also, I've felt a kind of connection. And then with the primitives in particular, it's their sense of doubt that I know hooked me and spoke to me. Somebody gave me a friend gave me a Bill Monroe record, like an LP, and I had another one of those moments, like, oh my God, what is that? We put on the turntable, and I just never heard anything like that, and it was crazy and funny and fast, and it just seemed ludicrous to me, but like ludicrous in the best, most exciting, incredible way. I'm really, really proud of that fourth chapter. No one's told that story before, and it's a story not just about African American primitives, really. Like, that's a nice story, and it's good and it's small, but it's a story about the reconstruction of Black religious life after the Civil War. It's a story about Black Calvinism, which historians have assumed just didn't really exist, and it's not so. And then just that writerly challenge of almost like squeezing the newspaper sources like for every little bit. So I'm just really proud of that. That was such a challenge for me to write. I'm proud of the arguments that chapter makes.